So I'm going to explain the different eras of the Republican Party. I have them each in a row. So the top row, George Washington to Millard Fillmore. There, yeah, there were no Republicans because this was the Republican Party of Abraham Lincoln. And then you have the second row, Franklin Pierce and James Buchanan. Yeah, an example of a Republican from that era is just John C. Fremont. Yeah, they didn't get elected. And then you have the next row, Lincoln to William Howard Taft. These are the Civil War Republicans or the Lincolnites. Some would include, obviously, Lincoln, Grant Hayes, Garfield Arthur, Benjamin Harrison, and William McKinley and William Howard Taft. So these were just the Republicans after the Civil War, during the Civil War, and after the Civil War. That actually, most of them actually fought in the Civil War. All the way until this guy, Wilson. So Wilson's presidency was something completely on its own. That's why I'm there. I put him there. So the Republicans during his presidency, I would just call that the progressive Republican era. So some Republicans from that era, even though he was out of office, Theodore Roosevelt, plus Charles Fairbanks, Charles Evan Hughes. And then you have the next row, Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, and I throw in Charles Dawes and Charles Curtis. Those three presidents and the vice presidents and other people made up the 20th century conservative Republicans. They were very conservative, very hands-off, something that I would actually appreciate. And then, because of this guy's handling of the Great Depression, Herbert Hoover, you got the next era of the Republican Party, the silent Republicans. From 1933 to 1953, Republicans did not hold the office of president, the majority in the Senate, or the majority in the House of Representatives. Some notable people from this era are Alf Landon, Wendell Willkie, and Thomas Dewey. Yeah, they were very silent. They had no power or influence. But I guess you could argue Thomas Dewey led to this next one. The moderate Republican era, from Eisenhower to Jimmy Carter. Some examples of Republicans from this era would be Eisenhower, Nixon, and Ford, obviously. But you also have Spiro Agnew, Nelson Rockefeller, Bob Dole, and George Romney, just to name a few. Yeah, these Republicans were a little bit more on the liberal side, but they were still more conservative compared to these two. And compared to him too. And then you have the next row, Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush. These Republicans are called Reaganites, Bush-Cheney Republicans, and neocons, rhinos, you get the idea. Some Republicans from this era, obviously, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush. Some others would be Dan Quayle, Dick Cheney, Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, John McCain, Mitt Romney. I think I said that twice. And yeah, They were relevant during that era. And then you had the Republicans during the Barack Obama administration. These Republicans were called Tea Party Republicans for some reason. And some of them would include Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Tim Scott, Brian Kemp, Kristi Noem, Kirsten Sinema. Yes, I'm putting Kirsten Sinema in there. Oh yeah, and Marco Rubio. And they were very, very conservative. More than them, and more than them. And maybe even more than the next row. Then you have the first Donald Trump era. Some Republicans from this era would be Donald Trump, obviously, plus Matt Gaetz. Yeah, a lot of his administration were Bush Cheney Republicans and Tea Party Republicans. And then you had the Republicans during the Joe Biden administration. Jesus. Very hard to tell, but it's Joe Biden. This is the liberal. That was the liberal Republican era. Some Republicans from that era were Liz Cheney, Anna Kinzinger, Lisa Murkowski, Tulsi Gabbard. This might be controversial, but I'm going to put Ron DeSantis in there. He did a lot of liberal things. And then you have the second Trump era. Some Republicans from this era are Donald Trump, obviously, Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance, and yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And they currently have the power in the Republican Party. And I would say I align most with the Tea Party Republicans. Just to throw a little opinion in there. And those were the eras of the Republican Party.